Tonya?
Thank you. And thank you, Chairman, and thanks to all the Assembly members for allowing me to testify today on behalf of the Northeast Dairy Producers Association. NEDPA, as we call ourselves, the Northeast Dairy Producers Association, was formed in 1993 by a group of progressive farmers that really wanted to become the voice of the dairy industry in New York. And we're also made up of many of our dairy industry partners. So that's who NEDPA is. We represent about 209 cows in New York State and over half the milk. So as most of you know, a dairy farmer's primary income comes from the sale of their milk. Many dairy producers, or most dairy producers, belong to a milk cooperative. The milk cooperative then, they sell their milk to the cooperative, and the cooperative then sells to processors who pasteurize milk and make it into fluid milk, ice cream, cheese, yogurt, all the delicious, wholesome foods that we love to purchase in grocery stores and restaurants. So restaurants, schools, and food service venues are really the largest users of dairy products. According to Dr. Chris Wolf from Cornell University, 54.4% of consumer spending for food is done outside the home. So you can imagine that had a huge impact on the dairy industry when we saw the pause or stay-at-home button hit. Many of you saw when you went to grocery stores that there were limits put on food. There were limits put on dairy products. That was really detrimental to the dairy industry because it wasn't that we had a lack of products. It was transportation issues. It was ordering issues. And some of my colleagues have talked about that in their testimony earlier today. So it took us a while when COVID-19 started to work through some of those bottlenecks and get those restrictions removed from grocery store shelves. According to one of our great dairy economists, Jody Smith from upstate Niagara, when the pause or stay-at-home order was announced, the demand for food service fell by 80%. So just wanted to share some background and statistics about what happened. We all saw the stories of milk dumping. And what we want you to understand is we weren't dumping milk for any other reason than there wasn't processing capacity. So warehouses were filled with milk and dairy products. And one of the bottlenecks that we have is that a lot of folks would say, why didn't you just give dairy products to people of need? Well, the issue is storage capacity. So dairy products are perishable food. And what we have found over the years is that our food banks have very limited capacity for perishable products like dairy food. So one of the things we were able to do, and Brian's organization and others were involved, was I think we just finished week 5 or week 6. I think all of us are a little cloudy, but we've been sending a truckload of refrigerated food from mostly Western and Central New York to Queens every week to be able to provide some food to folks in need in Queens, New York. And one of the reasons that we've been committed to doing this every week is because sending that cold storage truck down the night before distribution allows additional cold storage. So that's something that I hope that we continue to work on in New York State moving forward, because there's such an importance between upstate and downstate in providing our wholesome, nutritious products, not just dairy, but fruits and vegetables to people in need. So that's something that we need to continue to work on. So I want to explain a little. When 2020 began, milk prices were projected to be higher than they had over the last 4 years. Dairy farmers were really banking on a recovery year to be able to reinvest in their businesses, which then, of course, has great economic impact on local businesses as we reinvest, build businesses, buy more equipment, and that kind of thing. And so when COVID-19 hit, we saw a 30 to 40% decrease in milk pricing. And then, as Kim Skelly explained earlier in his testimony, many cooperatives put in place, because we had so much milk, put into place milk production requirements. So they wanted farms to reduce milk by up to 15%. And so what happened was, as others have explained today, our cost of business either stayed the same or continued to go up, but our income went down. So as many of you know, we are one of the highest, labor is one of our highest costs on our farms, and we have some of the highest labor costs in the country in New York State. So we're really grateful to the federal programs that got put in place, specifically CFAP, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, is something that dairy farms have been able to utilize. That's the program that's been most beneficial to us. We've also been able to utilize the Nourish New York program, as Brian discussed earlier, and that's really allowed us to continue to do, like I said, send some dairy products to places of need and work closely with the food banks. A quote from one of our dairy economists, I think, really talks about the situation that we're at today the best. Today, just 8 weeks after the markets reached dreadful lows, markets have found some recovery. While some recovery can be attributed to the slow reopening of our economy, which many of you have already talked about today, the level of recovery we are seeing in the market has only been achieved through the government intervention and buying programs. So the CFAP and other USDA programs has really helped us in here with dairy products in New York. I'm out of time, so I will yield to questions.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Why don't we start with Donna Lupardo?
Thanks. Oh, hey, Tonya. Nice to see you.
You as well.
I was on a Zoom call the other day with some folks from Cornell, and they talked about an unintended consequence of the food box program, or I'm not sure if I got it right, but they've seen a spike in cheese prices. Have you heard this or know what that's about and can explain that to us?
So cheese prices are going up, which is great. So Assemblywoman Lupardo, the food box program and buying dairy products is been fantastic for us and is desperately needed. Some of the unintended consequences are so now we've been asked to reduce milk production. So farms have put things in place to reduce milk production. So how that happens is you change your ingredients into your food, just like any of us with our diets. And so now we have reduced milk production on our farms. So if we have a spike in need, we will have reduced milk production. But we also really need to do that. So just to share some finances with you, I talked with our dairy economist today, and so May milk prices have been around $12.30 per hundredweight. June is predicted at $15. We don't know that yet. And but the cost of production is around $19 per hundredweight. So farms are still losing money every day.
And you mentioned earlier about, the bottlenecks, the processing capacity, the storage capacity. So as we're moving forward, trying to figure out how to make our supply chain more adaptable, where do you think the investments should be made?
I think we definitely need to continue to look at investments in New York State for dairy processing. We have an ideal environment here for dairy. We need to work harder on promoting the nutritious products and helping folks understand the nutritional value of dairy. So I think that's something that is something that we need to continue to do. Another opportunity in New York, I think, really is we all know about the meat crisis, and some folks don't realize when cows retire from the herd. So when they retire from milking, they go into the meat industry. We don't have any production, any meat, any processing, we don't have much meat processing in New York State. And I think that is a bottleneck that we have. So many of our dairy cull cows, as we call them, go to Pennsylvania. And I think that's an opportunity that we need to continue to look at. And one of the obstacles in New York has been our regulations. So we need to continue to work on that opportunity.
I think there's an opportunity for us to all start speaking in these terms together. Yes. So as we're looking at another potential round of the Regional Economic Development Council money. It may not be a competition this year. We're not sure. We're hoping it'll link up with the governor's call to reimagine. And I'm going to be focusing on reimagining agriculture for the future. And also, it was in many ways unsustainable to start with, as you know.
Absolutely. As difficult as COVID-19 has been, I think that there's been an opportunity to learn about what we need to do better in connecting consumers with the nutritious products that we produce in New York State. And I think that there's opportunities to continue to work together on reimagining and economic development for sure.
Don't you agree that in a way, consumers have become much more aware of where their food comes from, just the experience of the shortages and trying to think about, where this food came from and, how we can better support the people who produce it. I think it was a real aha moment for a lot of people.
Absolutely. There was a few of us, Brian was part of this in New York Farm Bureau. We went to New York City and to try to learn more about how we better connect with consumers in upstate agriculture. And that was a huge takeaway for me, is that we all need to talk more and work together and learn more and where are our bottlenecks. So the dairy products are so packed with nutrition. So making sure we work with our food banks and figure out this perishable cold storage issue is huge. I talked about this truckload to New York City. So we've been sending potatoes down. There's some folks in New York City who are actually looking to Idaho to get potatoes. They didn't even realize that there were potatoes produced here in New York State and that we had them available. So there's a lot of opportunity for all of us to connect and do a better job at serving each other.
Okay. Thank you so much for testifying. Nice to see you, Brian. Thank you very much for your work. And we'll be doing a lot more in this coming stretch. Thanks.
Okay, Donna. Next, let's go to Brian Mankelo. You're up.
Thank you, Chairman. Tonya, just a question on milk. How much milk is brought into New York State from other states or Canada? Do you know?
I don't know that answer. We are one of the largest milk producing states in the country. So I think if milk is brought in, it's more of a niche market.
Okay, so
we can get that information.
That would be great. So we can produce enough milk here in New York to supply all of our needs?
Yes.
Okay. Including
there are some cooperatives that actually export milk, and then we have places in like central New York, Cuga Milk Ingredients, that is making milk powder, and we export around the world actually. So
we're definitely exporting, but we don't have a whole lot coming in. Then
correct. Correct. Yep, I would say it's more the niche market areas.
Being up here in apple country and as a previous farmer, that's a good thing. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you very much.